Caligula was dead, the young emperor savagely killed by the Praetorian Guard Carhaia and his conspirators. This left Rome without an adequate successor, so who would fill the empty throne? The senators wanted to restore the Republic, but the ambition was swiftly hindered after the Praetorian Guard Gratus found a successor to Rome behind the curtain, and that is the clumsy and coarse Claudius, uncle of Caligula. Claudius was born at Lugdunum on 1st August 10 BC, the first emperor to be born outside of Italy. His father was Drusus, the stepson of Augustus and son of Livia, and his mother Antonia was the daughter of Mark Antony. Claudius also had an older brother who is known as Germanicus. Despite being born into a prestigious family, he was considered an embarrassment. He suffered from a speech impediment, tended to dribble and had jerky movements, all sign of cerebral palsy. However, this hypothesis is dated and does not consider all of the evidence available, but he definitely suffered from a neurological disease that would soften later in his life. Claudius would be ostracized from political affairs and hid in the shadows, choosing to author historical books on the Etruscan and Carthaginian history, as well as an autobiographical account. Another work which ruined his reputation was a book on civil wars, which was either too truthful or too critical of Octavian. He may have written it to serve as a reminder for Augustus that Claudius was Antony's descendant. Claudius may have been ridiculed by his family, but the public held him in high esteem. Following Augustus' death, the equites chose Claudius to lead the delegations. When his house burnt down, the Senate demanded that it be rebuilt using public funds, and also requested that Claudius be allowed to participate in Senate debates. Despite these efforts, Tiberius, who had become emperor, rejected them. He even refused his request to begin the cursus honorum, causing Claudius to abandon his dreams of becoming a public official. Luckily for him, his chance for the public spotlight came after the passing of the emperor Tiberius and the ascension of his nephew Caligula, who appointed him as co-consul in AD 37 to emphasize the memory of his deceased father Germanicus. Caligula would not last long on the throne, and conspiracy led by Cassius Carhaia and several senators would end with the young emperor being savagely stabbed to death. Carhaia's wrath extended to Caligula's wife and daughter, revealing his intentions to eradicate the entire imperial family, but luck was on his side as a Roman soldier named Gratus discovered him. Gratus proclaimed Claudius as princeps and escorted him to the Praetorian camp, where he would be placed under their protection. As emperor, his first action was to swiftly get rid of the main conspirators behind the murder of his nephew. Cassius Carhaia and Julius Lupus would be executed. Sabinus, on the other hand, was spared, but committed suicide out of loyalty to his co-conspirators. Although Claudius had connections to Augustus, which made his ascension legitimate, he nevertheless bribed the Praetorian Guards as a means to secure army loyalty by rewarding them with 15,000 sesterces each. Ancient authors have told us that Caligula has squandered the imperial treasury, yet if Claudius managed to present them with such a sum of sesterces, this may not be the case. He would win popularity by burning criminal records and abolishing treason trials. However, he still felt fearful that he would be murdered by those around him. Those entering his presence would be carefully searched in case they had concealed weapons. Whenever he felt like his life was in danger, he acted swiftly and cruelly. Many plots and coup attempts happened during his reign. The most climactic was the rebellion by Senator Vinicianus and Scribonianus, governor of Dalmatia, with support from a few senators. The rebellion was short-lived, only 5 days, due to the reluctance of Scribonianus' troops, which left the main conspirators to commit suicide. The rebellion revealed those who were implicated in the plot. Throughout his reign, at least 35 senators and 300 knights were executed. Claudius successfully expanded the empire ever since the reign of Augustus. The provinces of Noricum, Lycia, Thrace, and Judea were annexed. The annexation of Mauritania, which began under Caligula, was completed after a defeat of some rebels. His most successful accomplishment was the conquest of Britannia. In AD 43, Claudius sent Aulus Placius with 4 legions to conquer the land beyond the sea. The swift conquest of the land, with reinforcements and elephants brought by Claudius, allowed him to establish a provincial capital of the new province of Britannia at Camalodunum. modern-day Colchester. As an administrator, he was heavily involved in the judicial and legal cases that arose during his reign. Despite being easily swayed, he paid close attention to the working of the judicial system. To clear out the docket, he extended court sessions and shortened breaks. He also required plaintiffs to remain in the city while the cases were pending, which was previously only required of defendants. To ensure a more experienced jury pool, he raised the minimum age for jurors to 25. He also issued numerous edicts, including one that granted freedom to 6 slaves who were abandoned by the master at the temple of Aesculapius on Tiber Island. Additionally, masters who chose to kill the 6 slaves instead of providing medical care were subject to murder charges. Claudius embarked on many public works, both in the capital and in the provinces. He built or finished 2 aqueducts, the Aqua Claudia begun by Caligula and the Aqua Annia Novus. These entered the city in AD 52 and met at the Porta Maggiore. He also restored the third, the Aqua Virgo. Transportation was a top priority for him, and he made sure to invest in it throughout Italy and its provinces. He oversaw the construction of roads and canals, including a major canal that connected the Rhine to the sea, and a road that linked Italy to Germany, both of which were initiated by his father, Drusus. In addition, he built a navigable canal on the Tiber, leading to Portus, his new port just north of Ostia. This port was designed in a semicircle with 2 moles and a lighthouse at its entrance, which helped to prevent flooding in Rome. To tackle the persistent grain shortages during winter, Claudius devised a twofold solution. Firstly, he established a port in Ostia, which served as a crucial hub for grain shipment after the Roman shipping season. Secondly, he incentivized grain merchants to brave the off-season journey to Egypt by granting the sailors special privileges, such as citizenship, exemptions from the marriage regulations imposed by the Lex Papia Poppaea. Additionally, Claudius repealed the burdensome food taxes introduced by Caligula, and further alleviated the tax burden on communities grappling with drought or famine. Claudius's final strategy to prevent famine involved expanding the arable land in Italy. To accomplish this, he devised a plan to drain the Fucine Lake and ensure that the nearby river remained navigable throughout the year. Despite the ambitious plan to dig a tunnel through the lakebed, it turned out to be a colossal failure. The tunnel ended up being crooked and too narrow to accommodate the water flow, resulting in a disastrous backup when it was finally opened. The consequences were dire, as the ensuing flood completely washed away a grand gladiatorial exhibition that was meant to celebrate the tunnel's completion. Amid the chaos, Claudius, along with the rest of the spectators, had no choice but to flee for their lives. Claudius had an insatiable love for games, as documented by Suetonius. He would enthusiastically join the crowd at the gladiatorial matches, showering the fighters with unrestrained praise. Not only did Claudius preside over numerous new and innovative events, but he also established games in honor of his father's birthday, soon after ascending to power. These annual games were held at the Praetorian Camp, the very place where Claudius was first proclaimed emperor. In addition to these festivities, Claudius organized the Grand Secular Games, commemorating the 800th anniversary of Rome's founding. He even orchestrated staged naval battles to celebrate the attempted drainage of the Fucine Lake, captivating the public with the extravagant displays. Moreover, Claudius took great pride in restoring and embellishing various public venues throughout Rome. At the renowned Circus Maximus, he replaced the turning posts and starting stalls with exquisite marble, adding a protective embankment to prevent flooding of the track. Claudius also implemented seating regulations that reserved front row seats to senators, further solidifying the privileged status. Furthermore, he reconstructed Pompey's theatre, which had been ravaged by fire. To mark its rededication, Claudius arranged special fights, which he observed from a specially designated platform in the orchestra's box. Claudius's dedication to games and his efforts to enhance Rome's public venues truly highlighted his passion for entertainment and his commitment to the city's cultural heritage. Claudius was hardly the first emperor to use freedmen to help with the day-to-day running of the empire. He was, however, forced to increase the role as the power of the princeps became more centralized and the burden of running the government became larger. The secretariat was divided into bureaus, with each being placed under the leadership of one freedman. Narcissus was the secretary of correspondence. Pallas became the secretary of the treasury. Callistus became secretary of justice. There was a fourth bureau for miscellaneous issues, which was put onto Polybius until his execution for treason. The freedmen could also officially speak for the emperor, as when Narcissus addressed the troops in Claudius' stead before the conquest of Britain. Since these were important positions, the senators were aghast at them being placed in the hands of former slaves and well-known eunuchs. If freedmen had total control of money, letters and law, it seemed it would not be hard for them to manipulate the emperor. This is exactly the accusation put forth by ancient sources. However, the same sources admit that the freedmen were loyal to Claudius. He would marry 4 women. The first was Plautia Urgula, who bore him a son, Claudius Drusus. Sadly, he died in his early teens due to asphyxiation. He would divorce her on the basis that she was an adulterer and on suspicion of murdering her sister-in-law Apronia. Next came Aelia Paetina, a relative of Sejanus. They would have a daughter, Claudia Antonia. However, the marriage also did not last long, since he would divorce her as she became a political liability to him. One version suggests that she physically abused Claudius. Valeria Messalina would be the third wife of Claudius. They would marry in early AD 39. Shortly after marriage, they would have a daughter, Claudia Octavia, and in February AD 41, Messalina would birth Tiberius Claudius Germanicus, later known as Britannicus, just 1 month after Claudius' ascension. Messalina was a scheming woman who would accuse senators and rivals and kill them based on false charges. She would also become notorious for being an adulterer. Ancient authors describe her as a nymphomaniac who would sleep with men ranging from the Senate to the lowly class. Her final bizarre act was in October AD 48, while Claudius was sacrificing at Ostia. She married Gaius Silius in a public ceremony. The reason for this foolish act is uncertain, but once Claudius was informed, he feared that he had been overthrown. Uncertain about what to do, his chief secretary Narcissus came to save the day. Claudius was hurried under Praetorian protection, while Silius and Messalina were captured and executed. His final marriage was unplanned, since he swore to never marry again after his disastrous marriage to Messalina, yet he was persuaded to marry Agrippina, the daughter of his brother Germanicus, in AD 49. Since this relationship was between an uncle and a niece, special dispensation was given to them by the Senate, as it was considered in Roman society to be incestuous and immoral to marry your niece. Agrippina would also scheme against Claudius. She wanted to make her own son, Lucius Domitius Ahenobarbus, aka Nero, the next heir instead of Claudius' son Britannicus. Her plan would succeed, since in AD 50, Nero was officially adopted by Claudius, was acclaimed the title Princeps Juventutis, leader of youth, marking him as the heir apparent. Her final step in the plan was for Claudius to die. His time would come, and on the 13th of October AD 54, Agrippina would supposedly poison him. Sources differ on who was the one to give Claudius the poison. Some say it was his taster Halotus, his doctor Xenophon, or the infamous poisoner Locusta as the administrator of the lethal substance. While some historians doubt that Claudius was murdered and merely died of old age, as in the year before he suffered a grave illness which could have persisted him till his death. Nevertheless, the next on the throne was acclaimed to be Nero at just age 16, with his mother, Agrippina, being his regent. Claudius was ridiculed, manipulated, and treated harshly by those close to him, yet he never showed tyranny back. He proved himself a capable emperor who adored his people and the people respected him. His judicial and legal contributions, expansion and annexation of provinces, as well as construction of vast projects, greatly benefited the Roman Empire. And that is why Emperor Tiberius Claudius Caesar Augustus Germanicus is the tragic emperor of Rome.